Now is the chance where we enter our degrees of freedom. This is not a full explanation of what degrees of freedom is, but if you want a little help, you can click on the question mark by any vocabulary, and it tells you that degrees of freedom for this test is number of possible result categories -1. We have 2 categories, head and tail. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So here's where I can change the degrees of freedom, and you'll get this. This will appear green, and it will say that that's right. You play with the degrees of freedom, and you can see as I start cranking those up, 3 degrees of freedom, 4 degrees of freedom, 5 degrees of freedom, 6 degrees of freedom, 7 degrees of freedom. You can play with that, but you see how the shape of this distribution changes. And the effect that that has is the more categories you have, the more degrees of freedom you have. And the more degrees of freedom you have, the higher value of a chi-square test statistic you need to reject the null hypothesis. And that is simply because the more categories of your variable that you have, the more opportunities you have to deviate from that null expectation, the more opportunities you have for randomness. So that threshold to show statistical significance just becomes higher. That's a little bit different from other statistical tests. Most statistical tests, you think about more degrees of freedom you have, then it makes it easier to reject your null hypothesis. But in the chi-square test, the degrees of freedom are determined by categories, not by individual samples. So this is a little bit different.